to our water. We can do it with a bit of dry brush. And I have the blue right here. We'll start kind of midway.
That's cobalt and...
Basically cobalt, maybe a few leftovers.
Secret sauce.
And a little darker at the bottom. Always thinking about that shape, how to make that shape more beautiful. Then we're going to go above with a little paler, more water, a little prettier blue. Painting from sort of a position of trust right now because I can't quite see because the shadow play on my paper is just a little distracting. Can you see the change though? From a lighter blue to a deeper blue below? That gradation is so important. It was important in the buildings we did this morning. It was important in the shadows we did this morning. It's important in the water we're doing today. Grading your washes. So this is going from a paler, bluer green to a yellower, heavier green in the foreground. That gradation also important. That's given this, I think, enough time to dry.
So would the reflections on the water be vertical or horizontal?
Vertical. And all coming towards us.
Okay.
All the vertical reflections.
Because it also somehow feels very horizontal, especially the far part of the river.
The reflections or
the water on the water?
The water surface is different than the reflections. The water surface, yes, does sometimes cut across or give us a diagonal or oblique. But the
reflections come straight down.
Straight down.
Okay.
Make it easy. Straight down.
So that's why you have this?
Yeah, that's why I have that up there. And a little bit down here.
And you have to time this reflections, or do you spray bottle? Or?
I'm going to spray it because I want to take care of the mountain first, the trees second, and then the reflections.
Okay.
You could do it either way. It depends on how you're comfortable, I guess. All right, so we go back to this green, add a little bit of blue. Even a little bit of lavender. Not a bad idea because the white will and the pink will give it just a little bit of distance. Let's see what it looks like. We go for a little bit of a mountain. A little bit more blue.
Do you ever use that cobalt teal which you have?
The what?
This one? I've never seen you use it.
On certain scenarios, yes. We want to keep it descriptive, not too cluttered.
Will the blue shine through, or?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So the edge is a little hard. What can we do to that? Make it a little bit along the periphery.
You're okay with it being hard here?
Yes. I mean, there should be some variation. Some place to be hard is good. Or variation is good. A little mindful of how the colors shifting down. Start to go a little bluer, a little darker, I mean. Notice all this has been done with a pretty big brush. Right. So when you're painting, it's not just because the painting is big, but you want to keep it very broad in terms of expression.
You don't want to get caught up in the details.
Not yet. At some point, yes, details become important, crucial.
Left this part white by purpose, huh?
Yep. Partially it's what I like. Not necessarily that it's purposeful. Partially it's what I like in painting, so I leave it. Does that make sense? You know, it's an individual choice. It's not necessarily a little bit of the rose. To economize the brush. Trying to economize the brush.
You're also quite cool, the green is. Like, despite the base being warmer as it goes, you're not changing that second color.
Not too much. Brush is a great instrument. Just using the top of it to get the feeling of those trees. tip. Blending. You see the pattern I'm looking for in the placement of these washes? The pattern of the yellow spaces against the rising trees, sort of a patchwork. No?
No?
Pretty clear?
Yeah.
You're just breathless?
It's also a little important to think about what comes behind each other.
Say that once more.
Like when you're adding trees, you're doing what comes furthest away and then coming closer,
Progressive.
right?
So getting a little
Yeah.
bigger and a little darker, just a little bit with each progression.
Okay.
Now we come to this side.
You subdued this tree to make it disappear? Yeah?
Yes, so to keep that corner quiet, you know how I feel now about corners.
Yeah.
They should be very quiet and kind of push in towards the painting. It's an important compositional idea, I feel. If there's too much draw in the corners, it takes your eye out of the painting.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit of just quietness down here is enough. Make this field feel a little brighter. Make it feel like there's some trees here. And we'll do something with reflections to continue that idea. Sort of like painting Tuscany. Tuscany has a similar dynamic. Okay, now we go to the left side. A lot of fields to the left as well, but as nature is, there's always trees on the river. A lot of trees on the river. Constantly varying the green from yellow to blue. Smaller size back here. And a little more blue. Lavender, you see how that blue comes through? Very beautiful. I love it. I love it. A little accent. I see an opportunity for a little accent back there. So I'm using a little more blue for this accent of the tall trees. So. And this side is a little more in shadow, I feel. We have an exercise in my class, counting strokes. So we pair up into teams, and the people sitting next to you count the strokes. And the goal is to do the painting in the fewest strokes.
What's the record? The best?
The record is 50.
5-0.
Yes.
Wow.
Seems like a lot, but
No, it seems very less.
yeah, okay. It is quite few.
I'm sure we're doing like 300 or something.
Add one more zero. And what it does, that exercise, and it's an exercise, it's not necessarily a working mode, but it makes you consider before you make the stroke how often you need to lift the brush, how you can do it with less, like using the heel of the brush or the tip of the brush, all those things. And now this corner too is a little challenge. I want to do it sort of in a quiet way that shows some of the directions. not too busy. Look at how the water is glowing. I love it. So far, just using this brush. That's pretty good. That sort of angled stroke. Now we return to let's do the bridge and start to get into some darks, a smaller brush.
This brush has a very good tip.
Has a good tip, yes. And I know that my spacing is a little inaccurate, but it's how it started, so I'm not going to try and change it at this point. Ranja's spacing will be perfect, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's already drawing.
Yeah.
We are waiting your spacing of the bridge.
Yeah.
We have we have some betting here about your bridge, how it will
Be
come
perfect.
out. Yes.
Indeed.
It would be the most perfect bridge ever been painted
Yes.
in this area.
You will remain a historic figure in landscape painting.
Statue over there.
Gary said that about me.
Yeah.
Little statue away.
He's
Put it
still
up
talking
in
about you.
That's hysterical. Historical.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought it was terrible. Seeing my therapist tomorrow. I've got colbalitis.
What is that?
Did you use your pencil lines for the fields and things, or did you more or less?
I did. And then I kind of observed again as I was painting and recorded them again as I was
Yes,
painting.
now it's Steve.
Just thinking about some shadows in my center of interest. Building up a little more of that light feeling of light across the center. Using a violet basically to do that. It's a great complement for a green. You know, our road's even big enough we can put
A
two
tiny
cars.
car.
Oh, nice. Instead of dogs.
It's a Mustang. Zehi and I saw a Mustang yesterday that was so nice.
Yeah.
It's a Pontiac Firebird, I can see.
Yeah.
It's a 1978 Pontiac Firebird.
It's a Mustang.
So we put in the bridge itself. Look at how that suddenly makes everything
The pops.
focus. Some reflections
Are you going to keep the bridge reflection the shadow quite solid?
for now, yeah. I don't want to wet the whole river just yet.
Mhm.
It is a good idea to have it a soft reflection, but I think we can do that after the fact. So I'm returning now to the center of interest and getting a little focal point. I mean, working on the focal point, developing the contrast that we see.
So these are reflections of the trees.
These are reflections of the trees. And this is you can exaggerate. You should exaggerate, I feel. they're all going to be hard edge for now, but I do plan to maybe come back over the water with a little wet brush to loosen the paint, to make it a little more.
What if it loosens too much? I mean,
Well,
that's
if we
happened to me.
if we wait, I think we're okay.
Okay. But if you scrub it or something, then it's gonna go.
If you scrub it, yes.
So it has to be a
Gonna go.
very light, like a
Yeah.
glaze.
Yeah, yeah.
You could have gone even more green with the water, right? Like you chose to be.
I chose to be blue because it's such a beautiful color.
Yeah.
And against, we could go green, but
It'll
it's
be too
reflecting
much
the
of
sky,
green.
basically, logically,
Hmm.
and just a second here. Let's go with a little extra darkness while we can.
You can see the squint version in this camera.
Put some
It's like
brown.
squinting and seeing.
Yeah. We'll have to squint before we paint.
And
called
while we
the-
paint.
Yes.
The Clint Eastwood style.
Shooting in the dark.
Squinting and painting. You talking to me?
Ja, Hände hoch, as we say in German.
That looks almost black.
It's quite dark.
And that's just a grade cobalt, is that right?
Yeah, I've added a thicker paint at this point. I should have a little more blue. That's better. A few details. Push back. To bring this into focus and to also push back against the distance.
Are you ready with the distance, or will you return?
I am ready with the distance. I think it's enough.
It dried much lighter, no?
Yes. Continue this reflections.
Which purple did you use in the shadows earlier?
It's a mixture of a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of cobalt blue.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I need to let it dry a little bit to see how these darks dry, because
They may lighten up.
I might want to keep it softer, you know.
Oh. And if you wanted to keep it softer after it dries, you'd go in,
Take out my big brush.
okay, with just water.
Yeah.
And are you going to add anything on the hills on the top?
No, I think the back is pretty much done. It's right through here that I want to bring it forward if I can. And the way I do that is just by adding some of these darks to the shadowed side of things and see how it looks. Maybe ideally these darks are added while it's wet, but I didn't have the awareness or the time to do it. Maybe one more blue here. This edge is a... Let's try something. Just a little accent to the side. More blue. Pretty well. Give a nice relief there. Let me soften this. Hard to see.
Just capturing the audience.
Look at how they like that, a little interesting.
Natural light makes a click. Great. I missed it. Maybe.
I'm sorry.
Would you darken the reflections again?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to do that while it's wet. Hopefully take advantage of that. Green and a little bit neutral tint.
Smoke on the water.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's 4 o'clock.
Okay, time to work, everybody. Yeah, the show is over. Time.
Don't pay them on paper, so